Hi, my name is Mike, and what is this video about? It is about the experience I had with Explosion Life in Kyiv, Ukraine. How did I get involved with Explosion Life? For that question, I have to provide some background. I met my wonderful lady, Anna, on charmdate.com. We started chatting, doing voice messages, video chats, phone calls, and many letters. I did not know it at the time, but Explosion Life is the agency that facilitated my flowers and gifts to Anna while we were communicating via CharmDate. Through all this, we were able to get to know each other and found we had much in common despite the distance between us, and decided we wanted to meet in person. This is where Explosion Life comes in from my perspective. What happens next? After we decide to meet, once the date is accepted, Explosion Life will introduce themselves by email and assist in the first meeting, which is usually at a nice restaurant. They will provide an interpreter, I will mention more about this later, and transportation from the airport. They recommend you bring some cash, more about this later, and try to make the first meeting as smooth as possible. What happened when I arrived in Kyiv? Of course, things go wrong during international travel. My check-in luggage was lost, and to their credit, my driver and interpreter waited for me and were checking with me until I processed my lost luggage claim. They took me promptly to my hotel and waited for me to freshen up for my first meeting with Anna at the restaurant. The first date went extremely well. The interpreter was very helpful, even though Anna speaks excellent English. The interpreter is good to have just in case there's any miscommunications. At the end of the evening, we planned the next day's activities. What happened then? At this point, I knew I would need an interpreter as well as a driver, so I hired the agency to do both. I'll talk more about both of these services later. How was Kyiv? We had a wonderful time in Kyiv. Of course, it helped that my interpreter knew the city and the history, while my driver knew his way around in and around the city. What did we do? We ate at wonderful restaurants, walked the city center, toured spots such as the War Museum, Pechersk, Lavra, St. Sophia, and of course went shopping. We even went acrobat flying since my dear Anna is a pilot. At the end of the week, Anna and I decided to continue seeing each other, and we are planning another trip soon. What were my lessons learned from this trip? So for you gentlemen from the US or Canada or even the UK, here's some advice. Number one, I am a seasoned world traveler and thought after the initial meeting I would not need an interpreter or driver. I was wrong. Unless you speak Russian or Ukrainian, you need an interpreter. Try reading a map in Cyrillic or ask questions in Russian. Trust me, this is a necessary service for your trip. The price was very reasonable, and my interpreter really knew Kyiv, the history in the city. A driver is needed. Unless you speak Russian, taxis, Uber, and metros would be problematic due to the language barrier. My driver had a really nice SUV and was also reasonably priced. Before you go, understand what services you will want and estimate the cash you will need to take. I did not take enough because, as a consequence, I had to visit multiple ATMs due to bank limits to pay for items and services. Not everyone accepts credit cards, so take plenty of cash. I also took advantage of my driver to transport me back to the airport for my return trip home. Get all these logistical details figured out and budgeted before you go, and you will be able to spend your time getting to know your special lady and not worrying about logistics. To sum it all up, the chemistry and things in common we have come from Anna and I. The time we had together in Kyiv and the opportunity to get to know each other in person was due to the services, professionalism, and courtesy of the staff at Explosion Life. Thank you for your time.